Johnny Ray, I got a question for you. I got two
course.
questions for you. I always want to ask everybody here. It's hard to segue into these, so I'll start with the less intrusive one first. But
Just get in there.
have you ever been to Egypt?
No, I can't wait to go. I've been to 2 other of the 7 wonders of the world.
Have you really?
Yeah, I've been to Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula, and which is absolutely amazing. And I just got back from Machu Picchu 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
The hidden city. What did you think about it?
It was absolutely astounding. I found out that it's hidden partly because of the way the Spanish, probably by the way the Spanish colonized. They killed all the. This is a phrase I'm making up. The Incan nobles, because I guess they had a hierarchy that I don't fully understand how it works. But the higher ups in the Incan civilization are the ones that stayed at Machu Picchu.
Right.
And the people, the non-nobles, quote unquote, they didn't know where Machu Picchu was. They weren't allowed to know. So when the Spanish came through, they killed all the Incan nobles, which is why it was called the Hidden City, because after everybody was murdered, nobody else knew how to get up there.
Yeah, they couldn't find it.
They couldn't find it. So I think they found it for the first time in 1918 or 1911, something like that.
Right.
So.
Which is insane. But, the stones that this is a sort of a pet interest of mine, but, the stones that they quarried up there, you went up there, I've never been there, but some of these stones are of a scale and of a size that is almost incomprehensible. And
it really is, though.
They brought some of these things hundreds of miles away and dragged them up that fucking mountain.
I have no idea how they got them up there. If anything, the thing that it felt like climbing up there, because we hiked the Salcante Trail, me and 5 friends of mine. We did about 55 miles to get all the way up to Machu Picchu.
Wow.
It really felt like Sam and Frodo going up the stairs to Mordor.
I love my Lord of the Rings references. Thank
yes,
you,
no, and it's a very apt one. Trust me, it's some of the trails are so incredibly narrow. You look at and it's like right in the middle of the side of a mountain, and you're like, how did this transpire?
Yeah.
So
what do you think?
It's inspirational. Me, I think they knew the terrain. They were ingenious, and I don't know what the planet was looking like, or at least that area was looking like at the time of, the Incan civilization. But it's just, for me, it was just inspirational, and it kind of, you walk up on it, and the first thing I thought was, there's no reason I should ever doubt myself about anything that I can accomplish if other human beings with less means can accomplish something as fantastic as this. And it's on top of a mountain. Perspective. Yeah, it's on top of a mountain that's surrounded by 5 other mountains. So it really it's really mind-boggling, and the only thing that comes close to being as beautiful or as epic that I've seen thus far in my life is totality during the solar eclipse.
Yeah, that was spectacular.
And the difference between those two is that one of them's man-made, so that kind of puts it in perspective. It kind of competes with the sun and the moon having a love session.
Lake Titicaca is near there.
John,
and,
watch your language.
And in Lake Titicaca, there is an ancient people that.
Can we just call it Lake Titty? Just
Lake.
Takes
just once.
My family's back. My father was from Greece, like the country Greece. He was an illegal immigrant from Greece. He came over here. He was on the Merchant Marines, and he came to Jersey, and he was like, "Oh fuck this! I'm definitely staying here." Never went back to Greece. Because back in the 70s when he left, like people were getting just killed on the street in Greece. It was a real nightmare. But anyway, my background is Greek, so I always joke. They have these names like Papadopoulos and stuff, but one of them is like Crapapoopolis and Titicacalis, Anyway, in Lake Titicaca, they had these people that were supposedly fleeing oppression. I think it was even before the Spanish had gotten there. And what they did is they were pushed to the banks of Lake Titicaca, and they started to fashion boats out of these hollow reeds that were there. And they went out in the middle of the lake, which is gigantic. This is like not some normal little lake. And as these people's boats started to join up, they actually made floating cities out there where hundreds of people lived, inaccessible to anybody else, on this man-made island of reeds. And there are still people there to this day, native people, that live on islands made of reeds in Lake Titicaca.
No way.
They grow crops on them. They have dirt on. It's
Like
really
hydroponic
unbelievable.
gardening? That's incredible.
It's really unbelievable.
People are
the
amazing.
The reason I bring all this stuff up is I'm fascinated by ancient stuff, and it's a great way to segue into sort of your more metaphysical beliefs.
Right.
And I know a lot of people are slightly uncomfortable talking about this, but what's your sort of cosmology, or what's your concept of the not physical world? If you have one, maybe you don't have one.
I've always said that I grew up Christian. I grew up Baptist. That was a tradition for me that was hard because of knowing history. I asked a lot of questions that people honestly couldn't answer, and still can't answer. But as I've gone through life, I think you have to be comfortable. I think you have to be comfortable saying you don't know. I think there's a piece in that. I think too many times people are so doggish on wanting to be completely 100% certain about something. There's really no way you can be complete 100% certain about.
Right.
So for me, do I think that there is something else out there? Yes. I'm not sure how it manifests itself. I would imagine something that's all good, which is what I hope that thing is, would decide to manifest itself differently to different people. The same way you can't reach everybody to be their best self with the same psychology or the same mental health program or the same shot doctor. If you're trying to help somebody with a basketball shot, I don't think that an all good, loving entity would penalize people for having to reach them in different ways, especially if they created that. If they also then created that person, it seems kind of unfair. But like I said, I don't know. I guess.
Have you ever had
we'll
any experiences with the supernatural?
Yes, I have. When I was, I've always. You can ask my mom about this.
For John.
No, I've seen. I fully believe I saw an alien when I was. I think 11 or 10 or 11.
Please tell us about this, if you're comfortable with it.
No. I'm comfortable. I was at my old house. I was up late. I've always been a night owl. My mom had just separated our bunk beds. So my sister was asleep in the bed off to my left, and my bed kind of sat behind the door. Like if you closed it, the bed would, be parallel, or if you opened it, it would be parallel to the foot of my bed. Right. And I was reading, and I looked up, and there was a hand, like an arm. It was like a neon color. It was shining, and it was pulling itself away from from the door. Like it was going back behind the door, and so
it was going through the door.
Yeah, and like back behind it. Like it wasn't like through the door. It was like if you saw the door, and then the hand was like out front of it. Like I had just missed it walking past.
Yeah.
And I put the covers up over my head. I was scared as hell, and then I put it back down. I went and looked. There was nobody there. My mom and dad were asleep in the next room. Everybody was asleep. And it's something I've never been able to explain, but I do know that this is a very complex, amazing world that we don't fully know everything that's transpiring. I mean, hell, 300 years ago, they were killing people for saying the earth was flat. And
hey, it's making a resurgence.
It is. And also, people didn't know... people didn't think flying was something that could transpire. I always think back if, we went back with some of the things that we know now and went back 1,000 years from now and showed people stuff, it'd be crazy. So, but do I think we're alone in the universe? Absolutely not. I actually wish I could be here for that. I actually wish I could be here for if aliens make contact, because I think it would be very interesting to see how humanity wrestles with that, because none of our cosmologies say that exists. Like for example, if you take Jesus, for example, did Jesus die on the cross for the Martian sins too? Very interesting how that would work. So I would just want to see the world deal with that. I wonder, would it bring us closer together? Would we become like an Earth as opposed to a planet of nations? The science fiction fan in me would love to just see how actual humans would respond to that. I mean, if the aliens came down peacefully, because if they didn't, we're gonna have some serious problems.
Yeah. I mean, it seems pretty obvious that they've discovered telltale signatures of quote unquote alien life form, like microbes, in rocks from outer space. So we're pretty confident. They haven't said definitively, yes, this is alien life form, but there are definitely signs that we've seen stuff. And for the last 50 years, we've been beaming out signals to try to reach alien life forms. So you feel pretty confident that there's intelligent life out there?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident about that. I mean,
would you make an attempt of some kind if somebody you met, say like in some esoteric bookstore in LA, tells you that he has a way to channel extraterrestrials, would you engage in something like this?
Yes. It's a catch-22 though, because there's a lot of snake salesmen out there. So I'd have to, if there was a scenario where it was a 100% genuine situation where somebody showed up and said, hey, if you go through this door, I don't know, a la Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, and there's an alternate dimension, would I be like, no? I'd be like, fuck yes.
Right.
Let's check this out. I would want to see it immediately. I know that's one of the, one of my favorite book series growing up was Animorphs.
Oh, I loved those.
And I'll never forget, I've read the series probably 7 times.
Oh, wow.
But I remember when, those kids are walking from the mall and walking through that abandoned construction site, and then all of a sudden this star comes down and see a ship or what have you. That's going to happen to somebody. Maybe it has already happened to somebody. Seeing something like that would be absolutely astounding, in the same way it's astounding to me to watch killer whales on TV, to watch sperm whales, to see, I remember one time somebody told me they went to Antarctica on a ship for a vacation. Seeing something like that, I think you just, regardless of, the context in which it comes, it's a blessing. And you're seeing, like when I was at Machu Picchu, I'm seeing one of the rare things. The vast majority of the people on this planet are not going to ever see anything like this. So if I got to see something otherworldly, literally, I'd be game. I'd be like, it would, yeah.
I talk to a lot of religious people. The tradition down here, and I'm in the South, and it's definitely steeped in Christianity, right? There's a church on every other block. And I always wonder about this, if people did have, I sort of suspect this is why Christian people are afraid of psychedelic drugs, because you can't control the message. If somebody had an encounter, say they're laying in bed, say my dad's laying in bed, and the spirit of Muhammad comes to him and says, hey, you've been misled by all this Jesus stuff. This is the true story. Or if Buddha showed it, whatever it is. They have an escape valve that they could pull and just say, that's a demon deceiving me, or that's the devil, destroy. And there is a little bit of apprehension about, say you had pulled that door back, and instead of a little green man, it was a messenger from X religion, whatever that is.
Right.
How do we reconcile this stuff? I knew growing up, I went to a Christian high school, and I knew one of the teachers there. His wife was a schizophrenic, and she would occasionally stop taking her medicine and would have powerful and dark visions. And this guy and I were friends. He was my teacher, but he and I we were buddies. We talked and stuff. And he was really conflicted about this, because she didn't want to go back on the medicine because she was conversing with angels, she thought. And he wanted to put her back on the medicine because she was out of her fucking mind, he thought. It is this really strange push and pull. If you had some of the prophets from any of these ancient religions alive today, and possibly they are alive today, we would instantly medicate them
They just have their own TV show now.
Well,
or give them a TV show. Yeah.
I was reading this crazy book that I was telling John about. This young skeptic, a Greek guy. So I know John will actually like it.
Look at Can't trust those Greeks, though.
He this young skeptic decided to go to India, and he had been studying yoga and all these other things really deeply for a long time. He was doing a lot of studying and training kind of at this Greek monastery, and he was finding a lot of peace and really enjoying it. But he was like, I want to give everybody a fair shot. He's like, I'm really interested in Hinduism. I'm going to go to the sort of the holy land of Hinduism. I'm going to study this thing firsthand. I'm going to compare them. I'm going to give it the same, shot that I gave Christianity. And what's interesting, and this is not a comment on the religion itself, but what's interesting is hearing this guy talk about all these things that happened. He's coming at it from a very materialistic standpoint, but he describes things, and other people that he's with kind of validate them, because he goes to see this guru named Babaji, who is worshipped by his followers as a god on earth. And he showed up in front of this cave, and these villagers found him, and he meditated. This is a legend, at least. This is back in the 70s. He meditated for 40 days and 45 days without getting up from his seat. He meditated. This is what people say. And then he opened his eyes one day, and they said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am Babaji," which is like this legend in Hinduism of this great yogi who basically inhabits. He comes and reveals himself every once in a while in sort of this form. But anyway, so this young guy goes to India to find a spiritual experience. And of course, while he's there, he happens to run into all these people who have had encounters with Babaji, which he hasn't been seen in many, many years, that kind of thing. And so they go to this ashram up in the, many miles up into the Himalayas. And he says at one point, so this guy shows up, he's 35. And the guru, that is, he says that one, and this is the guy narrating who had this experience. At that point, something strange happened to me, which suddenly reminded me of my experiences under hypnosis, because he's done a lot of stuff with hypnosis and white magic and all this stuff. Suddenly, while I was watching him come down the stairs, I lost consciousness for an indeterminate period of time. I was standing there, but my mind and self-consciousness had been seized and taken somewhere else. I was not aware of my body or my thoughts. For a moment, it was as though I no longer existed. Even now, there remains a startling empty space in my memory about what happened to me during those few seconds, or were they minutes, during which my very existence seems to have dissolved away. When he came about within 15 feet of where I was standing, I shuddered with apprehension and broke into a cold sweat. I was taken back by his features, which were somehow not quite human. Of course, this being in front of me had a human body and form, but there was nothing else human about him. It was clear that his soul was hardly human at all. I would have found it more credible and less shocking for someone to claim that he were a figment of my imagination or some extraterrestrial being. Everything about him was strangely alien, and his eyes were charged with a terrifying intensity and power. Now, keep in mind, hundreds, even thousands of people worship this guy. So, clearly not all of them are just making this up out of thin air, I would think. And then he says, although I was terror-struck and confused, I remained aware of my surroundings. Babaji was accompanied by 4 or 5 yogis with black fabric draped around their bodies and holding in their hands spears with tridents on the top to symbolize the god Shiva. One of them drew near me, looked me straight in the eye, and with a stern and imposing voice ordered, "Take off your shoes and worship him." As he said that, his pupils became so unnaturally large that they eclipsed his iris, which now seemed to be entirely black. From my knowledge of witchcraft, I immediately recognized this as a ploy for achieving domination. He's filtering it through all of these different lenses and all this kind of stuff, but really, really weird stuff keeps happening that really makes the case that this guy Babaji, this guru, really does have power over people. And it's really impossible to deny that, whether that power is supernatural or some sort of technique that's learned is almost irrelevant, because the power does exist. Right. And I think about that with aliens. My question for you, Johnny, was are you more likely to believe that you would have an encounter with an extraterrestrial or something from some sort of a spiritual realm? And
Oh, wow.
How do you sort of reconcile those? I don't know. I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Which is also a perfectly fine answer, as we've.
When I was a kid,
No, I mean, I've had very prominent spiritual moments. I can think of two, in general, where it felt like there was some kind of other force at work. One was just a completely random moment in church. I think when I was in high school, and then the other was what led me to go to Temple in the first place. So I don't know. I think
Temple being the college you transferred to, not your conversion.
Yeah. I went there for I was on the college tour. They used to do in my Rites of Passage program. They would do heritage tours, and I went on one of the heritage tours, and we were in Philadelphia. I forget what school we were gonna be going to, but we met these girls, and these girls told us that there was going to be this party on campus, and we were like, oh, snaps, we're going to hit this party up. We high schools, but we going to do this Temple thing.
Yeah, boy.
So it's going to be lit. And so we got there to what is now, or I don't know if they changed the name, but it was a student center at the time. I remember I had my Portland starter jacket on, because starter jackets were real big at the time. I had my bag. If you see any early pictures of me from high school, I was definitely into the baggy, East Coast hip hop situation. Yeah. Like I had on some Timbs and 4X sweatpants and the whole nine. I used to wear. My mom used to hate this, but I would wear a towel around my neck. We would steal the bath towels from hotels,
like a little sweat towel.
Yeah, I tried to take it to the next level. I had the whole bath towel situation. Like it was, and it had to be ice. It had to be ice white, and so I would wear it around my neck. You have like a throwback jersey on. It was crazy because my mom would be like, "You look like you're about to go take a shower. Like, leave that.
I love it.
You can't take that to school."
It wasn't like a hand towel.
Nah, like some people had the hand towels you leave out your back pocket, but I had the full like bath towel. And like I said, we were stealing from hotels. Like I looked really ridiculous. Like sometimes how people will take wife beaters and they'll tie them around their head. Right. I would do that with the towel, where I would put the towel around my head and then use a rubber band and then let it like go down my back. So it's just dumb stuff you do as a kid. You think it's fresh, and you look back, you're like, yeah, I look like an idioto. I ran into Method Man at the Newark airport a couple years ago, and I got a picture with him, but he still dresses like this. Yes. He's like 50, man. But he looks cool. He could do that. I mean, I think like my mom used to say, now I know now, like you have to you got to dress with in a way that flatters your body. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Mm-hmm. And in that same regard, my mom used to tell me, and I know now, she said if I wear pants that are oversized, it makes my legs look smaller, and then I'll look shorter. Like Timberland boots kind of come up past your ankle, and then now the pants are all bunched up. So, but that's one thing I know now, because now I know fashion. So that's why I'm like, look, I got to make sure I keep the streamline on my leg, all of that kind of stuff. So you just
Johnny's a very fashionable guy. Actually,
dress how you.
we borrowed some of your clothes for the movie.
Yeah, so you just gotta know what you do. Like I'll be in the store and I'll be like, I can't do that because I'm not 6'1", I'm not 6'2". So there's certain things that like I said, if you know the game, you can accentuate your best features. But anyway, we basically went into this Temple situation. We thought it was gonna be this big party, and it wound up being this like prayer group, like I don't know, group situation. And so
a little bait and switch.
Yeah, with the Rites of Passage thing, they gave us a lot of freedom. Like I have another really crazy story on the Heritage Tour when I was in Boston, and I wind up I was like a little Tommy Pickles, so I just left the hotel and just walked around Boston at 1:00 in the morning, and some wild stuff happened to me. But just at Temple, they dropped us off. They dropped us off and was like, "We'll be back to get you." So we had to stay. Uber wasn't around at the time. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know really where we were. So we just kind of, I guess, dived into it. And, I remember we were holding hands and stuff. And, this, thing came over me and all this stuff. And so I didn't know what was really transpiring. But I don't find it, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't a coincidence that then led me back to Temple, 2 years later when I needed to transfer. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
when I was a kid, there was a girl who came and stayed with us from Nepal when we lived in Jersey, and she was her family were probably, they were wealthy Nepalese, and she was going to school here in America, and my family at the time was, but they still are, but it was like extremely religious Christians, But my parents welcomed this chick in. They were great to her. Nobody tried to proselytize her or anything. They just kind of were just, we all just lived our lives. She was super great. She was super nice. And I remember I was really interested in her religion and her beliefs because she was extremely intelligent. She was super articulate about her beliefs. And it's just such a completely different world than what I had grown up in. Anyway, we went to Princeton, New Jersey together, this girl Pawana and I, and we went to the Hindu temple, and it was closed at the time, and she was so upset. And we're kind of looking through the windows. It's all glass, we're looking through the windows inside. She really wanted to get in, but they were cleaning the building. And I remember they were cleaning this like statue of like Kalki or Vishnu or somebody, and I just turned to her and I was like, "Oh, Pawana, they're cleaning your gods," very very dismissively. I still feel bad about that because this girl, like,
you're such an asshole.
I was mocking her, and I look back and I was like, dude, she had like definitely some wisdom. I mean, she was telling me stories about back in Nepal, they have these temples, and she was saying, they're up in the mountains or whatever, and they'll have hundreds and maybe thousands of pounds of gold just sitting out in the open. And I was like, don't people just steal that shit? She's like, no, nobody would ever do that. It's just a completely different culture. They have some stuff figured out that we just absolutely just don't know. But it is the world of metaphor and of these like visual representations of their beliefs. It's really fascinating. Even just how permissive it's a really fascinating culture, and I think there is so much to learn that we, like, when you're in this Christian world, we generally have a super dim view of other cultures, but it's
or the Western world, really. I mean, it's not even just Christianity, it's just sort of
that's one of the things we talked about. That was one of the things we talked about when we were there, going to Machu Picchu on the hike.
Right.
My friend Monte is a history savant. My friend Kalechi and other friend Kalani are both Nigerian. One being Igbo, the other being Yoruba. My boy Damien was a military cat that came. His family came from the military lineage. So we had a lot of really great conversations, and that's one of the things that we discussed about the Western philosophy on life and a lot of the ethnic. Whether you're talking about, African cosmologies or what we were talking about with the Incas, it's about, how they perceived the world and how they perceive land. And in the Western philosophy, land is something that is to be owned and to be done with what you want. Whereas in a lot of other cultures, land is something that is to be used and to be shared. So it's interesting, kind of like how people approach things. I guess
I immediately thought about the I think it's a Twilight Zone episode, but it's called To Serve Man, where an alien comes down and it has this book, and it seems like this benevolent force, and it gives mankind this book called To Serve Man, and all the scientists in America are trying to decipher this book. And at the very last minute, the alien tells them, like, the rest of us are going to come. You guys need to decipher this book. The rest of us are going to come down, and we're going to live out this book on Earth. And the last scene of this show is the scientist discovering that To Serve Man is actually a cookbook for how the aliens are going to cook and eat humans.
That's awesome.
I think I have.
Is that you said that's a movie? It's a Twilight Zone.
I think it's a Twilight Zone. I'll look.
You gotta send me that. Send me that.
I know.
Somebody email me that. I gotta find that. I gotta watch that. That's great.
Dude, I watched. Yeah, it's a Twilight Zone episode called To Serve Man.
That's the thing, but just back to filmmaking. I miss stuff like that about the movies that come out now.
Mm-hmm.
Like something like that just sounds like just a great opportunity to do something really fantastic on all levels of the cinematic process. And I miss that stuff.
I watched an episode of The Twilight Zone, the original, with my boys recently, and my sons are 10 and 7, and they hadn't seen any shit like this. And we watched the episode about Talkie Tina, where this girl gets a doll that is actually alive, and it begins to tell the dad, who's a real dickhead, that she's going to kill him. And nobody else can hear the doll talking to him. And it's so creepy. Barely anything happens. The end of the episode, the guy is trying to get rid of the doll. The family's falling apart. They all think he's lost his mind completely. And the last scene of it is he's walking down the stairs, and he trips over the doll and breaks his neck as he falls down the stairs, and that's the end of it. So the doll does kill him. Dude, my kids were shitting their pants. I mean, it's black and white. It's all dialogue. Virtually nothing happens, but the writing is so pitch perfect, and it really captures like these deep, dark fears that we have.
Dude, that stuff. You know, going back when I was in film school, I really, especially because so much of early cinema is not, you don't see yourself.
Right.
There was a lot of things that I just patently didn't want to watch.
Sure.
And in retrospect, you know, that was a mistake. Because now I can watch stuff and kind of put some of the, I can kind of watch it in a vacuum, where some of the races and all those things, like, they're less my concern and more like, let me try to get some of these techniques. And when I remember when I watched Strangers on the Train, when I was in prep for directing DVD and Chill, and you're just like, wait, what the, like, nothing is happening, but like, yo, this is how you handle suspense. Like, what are we doing now? And like some of the stuff that like you're talking about now with the Twilight Zone, some of those other film, they were so skillful at being able to craft a story and get a reaction, you know, from the audience, something visceral, whether it's an emotional or an intellectual response. And like, I miss that about filmmaking nowadays. Like, I see some of these, you know, really, you know, some stories have really great potential, and then, you know, to go for the cheap, but I gotcha. Like, it's funny when I watch horror movie trailers, it's so much of it is on a very specific rhythm. It almost feels like I'm like freestyling or like a rap song, where I'm like, okay, she's in the bed, and 3, 2, 1, ah, or 3, 2, 1, faint, and then 2, 4, ah. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, some of the stuff I want it to be on the offbeat, because then I'm like, then it plays with your expectations, where you're like, oh snap, oh wait, because when I watch Strangers on the Train, I'm like, wait, so he's in the house, he's sneaking in, oh snaps, it's a dog, the dog's gonna try to get him, because of course that's what happened in, you know, in a modern movie. But wait, so he creeps past this big ass dog, the dog don't do nothing, he walks into the room, oh Snoops, the dude's got a gun, he gonna shoot. And then basically all that happened in this whole time period is he walked into the house, he had a conversation with the dude, and then walks out.
But it's so suspenseful, yeah.
But you're like, oh my gosh, because again, there's all these feints that don't feel like feints, because some of the takes are longer takes, so you really get a chance to like live in it. But then, like I said, they don't go for the, all right, he's in the house, he's got to have a whole fight with the dog, because that'll be a lot of action. But for some reason, the dude upstairs doesn't wake up, even though there was this big fight scene downstairs with the dog. And like, you know what I mean? So it's like all these things that totally. I guess you'll suspend your disbelief on. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I miss that stuff. So when, you know, like, I know when I saw Split, like, it was giving me some of those feels just because of James McAvoy's his performance was so, you know, phenomenal. But I get excited when I see, you know, people taking those. Well, maybe they're not risks, but when people do those things from an acting perspective, or from a cinematic perspective, or from a sound design perspective, I'm like, yo, that's. Whew, they're really going to town with this thing. Like Pan's Labyrinth. I remember when I saw Pan's Labyrinth, I was like, "Yo, this dude who is this guy? This is madness." So
yeah, that movie's great.
Rod Serling, who made The Twilight Zone famously, was a really strong social advocate. He was adamantly opposed to racism and social equality. He had all these like really kind of modern takes on stuff, and he tried to incorporate these explicitly originally into The Twilight Zone. and they made him take a lot of the stuff out. So he started to surreptitiously put them in. He still kept all that shit in there. He just, instead of it being, you know, a black guy versus a white guy, it was aliens versus the human race or whatever issue it was that he could slightly obscure but still get that message out there. And I think that's partly why. I mean, it's great writing. They're well made, but they also all have a lot of them have a deep social message that's pretty obvious if you're looking for it. And that's why they still hold up.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think we should call it.
Call it.
Getting long, but the beauty of it is that there will be plenty of other times to discuss various other things because you know, this is not like a one-time thing necessarily. I think we'll plan to get on again and talk. Especially, you know, once the movie's out, we'll have plenty of time to talk about specifics of the movie. But at some point, Johnny, I do want to do an on-air kind of debrief of like our two perspectives of making the movie. You know, like I think that would be. We've talked a little bit about that, but I think that would be a super interesting conversation. Because, you know, I love that when you watched it, that you were able to watch it as a viewer, but then there's definitely, you were one of the craftspeople, along with me and lots of other people who had a vision for what the movie could and should be. And
yeah,
I'm super excited to sort of, that's part of what I love about this process of the podcast is letting people in on that kind of stuff as well. Because, movies are such a weird collaborative art, you know.
They are.
So
they are.
I'm excited to dive into that next time.
Yeah, I can't wait. So you guys keep me posted when you guys get some free time.
Yep.
Yes.
I will be around, and I don't know why that made me think of Morgan Freeman in Seven. Where are you gonna be, Somerset? I'll be around. Anyway.
What's
Seven
in the box?
is such a great suspense movie too.
Yes. I know we
great
can't talk
movie.
about it because Kevin Spacey's in it, but
Oh,
maybe.
he's canceled, right?
Yeah, he's canceled. But maybe
yeah.
some of the wild shit he was doing in his personal life, maybe that made that character so
Right.
wild and
So
crazy.
believable.
'Cause
Yeah.
that, like, just side note, that monologue he gives in the car, and that monologue made me want to do films. I had never. I saw Seven in college when I was at Temple. I think my first year I was there because I was living in the transfer house, and I wanted to act because of that character and
That's
and that scene, especially with where the writing took it. And I'll never forget Kevin Spacey had that moment where he said, "I can't wait for you to see. I really can't."
Oh, man.
And to be able to do, because like he had something brewing, and as effortless as it was, and Brad Pitt is doing all his stuff and blah blah blah, and a woman, and of course we talk about the social commentary. A woman so ugly on the inside she couldn't bear to be, unbeautiful on the outside.
Right.
Only in a world this shitty can we call these people innocent and keep a straight face. You're just like. I was like, as a young person, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is
Epic.
What is this? And then he just looked at. I've never had a moment like that in my life where somebody's talking that good shit, and you say, I can't wait for you to see. I really can't. That's some. If somebody said that to me on the street, I'd be like, all right, something, shit, my car about to blow up or something. Shoot, some. I can't move the same. So
Right.
Looked at me like that and said that to me. I'm gonna be on pins and needles.
It was funny because
Tyler.
Kevin Spacey read that and he said, "I don't even have to act. This is actually me." Just kidding. Zay had a cousin, I think, who got groped by him. Didn't you say?
I don't think he ever got groped, but he was heavily pursued. Yeah.
Heavily pursued.
He tried to get him to go on an RV trip with him to South Carolina, and Archie was like, "Nope."
Archie
Not
was
doing
6 at
that.
the time.
Admittedly, this was before anyone knew what was going on. Admittedly, all of us, we were all texting about it, and we were all like, "Archie, just take one for the team. Go on the road trip."
Nah,
Jeez.
there's a spider sense
really,
that kind of.
I know. We were at that point. We were pretty sure there was something weird going on. But anyway.
Anyway, sorry to end this on Kevin Spacey, but
No, it's okay.
My bad.
I think the real no, it's okay because I think you know what you made me think of with that. Two things. One, early in the show, John told a story about taking his kids to Central Park, and there was a box, and it said, "Don't look in the box." And we made a whole bit out of it, and there was not a head in the box.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we've been doing this a while. And then second, Johnny Ray, I think what you were saying about, that monologue made you want to act in films. I think that's such a cool perspective to have, because I think I had that moment with a few things like The Life Aquatic and other moments where I was like, I want to make movies. And I think, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm sure you do too as a filmmaker and an actor, is like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting this much damn work into this? And I think the answer for me is because when you really do it well, people have that type of experience with stuff. They say, I understand something or someone or myself differently or better, and it makes you think, and it inspires people.
Right.
And my newest kind of theory is that great film reminds us what we're living for. And I think tragedies like Seven remind you what you're living for because of the prospect of losing it. But I think, inspiring movies can remind you what we can be. Like going to Machu Picchu does the same thing. It's like, this is what we could be doing if we stopped fighting each other. We could be building incredible civilizations. Not that they were perfect either, but we could be, this is what humans are capable of. And I think that to me is what movies can do, is they can say, like, they remind you what you're living for, why you're putting in the work, why you are living here. So
I agree 100%. I think that's a very usually I just say I love it, but and I've always, like I said, I've always loved storytelling, but that's that moment I felt when I remember when I cried on a movie for the first time when I saw All Dogs Go to Heaven. I ran downstairs. Classic. And my mom was cooking, and I was distraught. And then the time I had, Braveheart, when I saw when Mel Gibson cried freedom at the end of that movie. And I'll never forget, my dad and my little brother were actually playing on the couch. And I was under the covers watching it, and I was crying because I didn't want them to see that I was crying when I saw that. I think of Katsumoto in Last Samurai, one of the greatest, one of my favorite performances. I think maybe my probably the best on-screen death I've ever seen from Ken Watanabe. Malcolm X, of course, at the end, that Spike Lee's able to capture. So for me, I've had some very powerful experiences with film, and I wish more of the stuff that comes out in the mainstream had that quality to it. Whether for me, I'm kind of a realist. Like if I'm gonna, that's why I like The Dark Knight so much, even though it's a superhero film. Like I'm like, if you're gonna show it, if you're gonna do a movie about World War II, do the movie. Saving Private Ryan, do the movie so that when people watch this, they say, oh shit, this is not some CBS version of what was going on. This is what transpired, and probably times 10. So maybe we shouldn't do this again.
Right. Yeah. That's so true. I saw Saving Private Ryan in the theater with my dad when I was a kid. My dad did not go to movies almost ever. And I remember they show all the kids on the beach just getting ripped to shreds. And there's a kid who's laying there, his guts are spilling out, and he's calling out for his mom. And I was so shocked by this. I was way too young to see that movie, but I looked over at my dad, and I'd never seen him cry, and he was crying, dude. It shook me up. I mean, it was a powerful scene anyway, but then to see my dad just like weeping over there, man, it was hard.
Man, I'm thinking, you guys are, that moment makes me think of when I went and saw Fruitvale Station by myself, and I saw it at the ArcLight, and I had a moment like that towards the end. Like, I just remember I feel like my teeth were going to crack because I was clenching my jaw so hard because I was trying not to cry. And I thought the thing that Ryan Coogler did so well with that film is he made it feel like there was this impending doom, this thing that was going to happen that you couldn't escape, like, because everybody knew the story of Oscar, and so you knew it was coming, but you still felt this like doom. And because when I was in high school, I won't say his name, but he was shot by the police. He was shot in the back. He had mental health problems, and he was shot in the back with a shotgun by Portland police. And so I was thinking about that, and I was weeping. And I don't mean crying. I mean I was weeping.
Right.
I had never had an experience like that in my life. And the people next to me, and this was also one of the most weird, awkward, intimate moments I've had. I felt this hand, and it was a guy. I found out it was a gay couple after I had left, and we wound up speaking about a whole bunch of stuff for a long time after the film. But he just put his hand on my thigh. And it was, and again, if someone touches your thigh, like it's very, it's funny because I had this moment, I'm like, what's happening? Thank you. Like, and I've never had any experience like that in the movie before. Somebody, because again, when you watch films, it's almost like taking it back to the campfire, around the various cultural fires of people telling stories, and you having this collective experience. Some of the best movies that I've seen almost garner a theater-like atmosphere, where people are dialoguing with the screen or having a conversation, whether that's, things like 12 Years a Slave, or even if you have, certain comedies, the way people interact with it. But he touched my thigh and just patted my thigh. He saw I was having an experience. And I said, afterwards, I told him, thank you very much, because I didn't expect to go there, but that's what film can do when you do it the right way. Whether that's something incredibly inspirational, or incredibly beautiful, whether that be a comedy that people are going up to Machu Picchu and they have this these moments of camaraderie or what have you, or if it's something completely visceral and terrible like Saving Private Ryan, because I see that and I'm like, I'm like 9.9 times out of 10 saying war is not really something I'm interested in doing.
Right.
I could talk that shit out, because I'm sorry, I don't want to be on a beach with my guts hanging out, me crying for my mom, especially when, if what we're fighting for isn't something that we should be dying for, because life is precious. So, but that's, like I said, that's the power of film, and that's why I look at certain directors, whether it's Anton Fuqua or Steven Spielberg or Alfonso, or you go down the list of these really great directors. When they do certain things, they do it for real, and you say, "Yo, this is lit," and it inspires people, it scares people, it makes people want to be better, all those things. But that's that. Like I said, that's the power of the medium, especially because it is such a collaborative process. With score, sound design, the actors, the director, costumes, all that stuff.
Yeah. I saw the Emoji Movie recently. I've been using my phone like crazy ever since.
Huh? Oh, Emoji Movie.
Sorry to end it on a terrible joke, but
I think that's how we should conclude. What's your favorite emoji?
I have one. Johnny,
I always use the Greek flag.
John, why don't you go first?
I just use the Greek flag like crazy. What about you,
Johnny Ray?
I kind of like the doo-doo emoji.
No, oh yeah, of course.
The doo-doo one's so good. I am currently, I have for a while, I've replaced the thumbs up with the pizza slice.
Okay.
Because who doesn't love pizza? It's just sort of like, yep, pizza. Like, we're good, pizza. I'll see you at 6, pizza,
I also use the one, it's of the hand where the woman is doing the nail polish.
Right.
Oh.
So I'll use that one. So if something's,
How do you know it's a woman, Johnny Ray?
Because it's got nail polish. Looks like pointy nails.
That's true. They do have very feminine-looking hands.
I wish there was a male one painting his nails, because I would probably use that one.
That one's probably better. We should petition the emoji people to make one. Well, okay, so this has been great, Johnny Ray. Excited to have you back soon.
Cool
thanks
beans.
for
We'll
coming
make it
on,
happen.
Dude, great talking.
All right,
to you,
it's my
Johnny Ray.
pleasure. This was good times. Thanks for letting me have a very reflective and beautiful morning. I appreciate it.
Oh,
yeah, same.
good.
For
Well,
real.
thanks for going there with us. We like to get we don't like the small talk, except for
man, let's
emojis.
get like I said, in there like swimwear.